welcome to week one. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through a couple of the important topics just real lightly. We'll talk a little bit about our project and how to be successful for your first deliverable. And then we're going to actually take a look at one of the two videos that I've assigned and I guess just kind of watch it together and maybe react and provide some commentary on the topic. So I'm in my course syllabus, and down here you'll see a couple of different links. We've got our project instructions, we've got our textbook, and our glossary. We open our textbook. This is what you'll see, and you'll see that our first topics here are the purpose of marketing and the iterative approach. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about. Then we've got our project instructions, and then we've got our video glossary. All right. So I guess the first thing I wanted to talk about is just kind of the iterative approach and maybe my view on business. So if you're unfamiliar with iterative, what we're talking about when we talk about iterative, what we're really referring to is a process by which we do something and then we reflect on what we did and we take a look at what went well or what went poorly, and basically we run kind of experiments. So we make a hypothesis, we run an experiment, and we look back on the results of that experiment and we say what went well, what went poorly. And the things that went well, we want to do more of, and the things that went poorly, we want to do less of. And basically what we do is then we create a second experiment that takes the learnings from what we first did and applies it forward. And really what we want to do is we want to make a series of incremental steps that kind of are going towards our ultimate goal. But it's stuff that we can work on and continue refining. So when we're kind of taking a marketing approach, what we don't want to do is we don't want to be lucky. We don't want to just throw something out and see if it works or doesn't, we're not really chasing virality, right? So we're not trying to make things that are viral. We're trying to really learn what works through a process, again, of really experimentation. So what that looks like is we create a marketing campaign and we kind of put it out in the world. And obviously our goal is that it's going to work. Now, what we want to be doing is we want to be like A/B testing. And what A/B testing is we may tweak some language. Okay, so maybe we're going to tweak a little bit of language on our advertisement. Or perhaps we're going to tweak our targeting market. So we may target different age groups or different economic levels or different attributes. Or maybe we're going to test whether a green ad would work versus a blue ad. Okay, so something very small and simple, but something we want to test. And what we then want to do is we want to put those out in the world simultaneously with the ability to measure which one produced quote unquote better results. Now, better results doesn't necessarily always mean buying our product. It may be an incremental step towards buying our product, but we want to have the ability to basically measure what we're testing. Once we get that information back, maybe our experiment works, maybe it doesn't, but we should have learned something. We should have learned, like, hey, did this work or did that not work? Did both of them fail? Did they both, succeed the same? And what that'll do is that'll give us information on, hey, did the thing that I was trying, did it actually do something? Did it produce a positive or negative result, or did it not? And from there, then we want to push what worked forward into our next experiment and try something else. So let's say we ran an advertisement where one was blue and one was green, and we found that the green one worked better. Well, what we don't want to do in the next one is we don't want to run that same experiment, and we don't want to run a blue ad. What we want to do is we want to run a green ad that maybe then we test the language in that green ad. And what we would see is, okay, did language A versus language B work better or worse? And through that process, this iterative process will propel kind of our findings forward and will ultimately land at something that should be quote unquote optimized. Now, this process does take away like this viral approach. So like I'm just going to throw something out there and basically hope and pray that it works. that can work. That can be a marketing approach that works. The problem with that marketing approach is when you have a win, it's often difficult to determine why it worked, and therefore it's hard to replicate. So if we have one viral campaign that works and we're unsure why it worked, it can be very difficult to replicate that. And one viral win is not really a business. That's just kind of a viral moment. And what we're trying to do is create something that's repeatable, that we can continue doing over time. All right, so that's the iterative approach. That's why we're taking it. And that's what we're really going to be practicing here over the course of this class. All right, now go watch that first video, the iterative approach, and tell me if that aligns with what I just said. It'll be interesting to see. Okay, so we're going to watch the second video here in a second, but before I do that, I want to talk about this week's project for a minute. And if you look through these project instructions, you'll get some kind of tips and tricks on how to do well. But let's pop down to week 1. And what week 1 says is our deliverable here is going to be one slide. So really a PowerPoint or a Google slide or a Google Sheets. Google Sheets slide or Google, what is it? Google Slides? I guess it's Google Slides slide. That we're basically going to come up with a product or a product idea, and you're going to present what that product is. Okay? So you may have a product in mind. You may not have a product in mind. Maybe you work for a company right now and you want to use one of their products for the company that you work for. Maybe you want to just pick a product out of thin air. Maybe you want to make one up. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a clear, simple slide that explains what your product or service is and who it's for. All right? So what our product is and really kind of what's the market. Include a catchy name. If the product exists and it doesn't have a catchy name, maybe think of a catchy name. How would you kind of rebrand and remarket this thing? And then identify 1 to 2 features that make it special. How does it solve a problem for our customer? Okay? We want to have a simple image or sketch. Again, with AI tools, you should be able to do this very simply, and you should be able to produce something that's pretty high quality. If you're unsure of how to do that, there's all sorts of tutorial videos. The other thing you can do is book an office hour with me, and I'm happy to help you directly. And then the last thing is you want to make sure to mention how you plan to start marketing your product and how you might change your approach based on how that works. So a small section that's talking about how would we approach the iterative approach of beginning to market this. What does that look like? Okay, and obviously this slide can be branded to kind of align with that. So these things you can kind of coalesce these around how would you market your product. I just want some descriptor on this slide indicating what your approach would be. All right, and then what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're not just writing out paragraphs. All right, we want to have bullet points. We want to be short, concise. All of the information that you're talking about isn't necessarily contained on this slide. This is really just our hit list. What are the highlights of kind of what we're talking about here? Okay, that's what I want you to put together. We're really talking about one slide. One slide is what I want you to put together that crams all of this information together and makes it rich and engaging, but doesn't make it overwhelming. All right, this is difficult. This is very difficult because you're communicating a lot of information and you only get one slide. All right, and it needs to look beautiful and not overwhelm somebody that's looking at it. All right, so that is the goal of the first assignment. Okay, so now I'm going to flip over to our second video here that's titled The Best Marketing Strategy for a New Business or Product. We're going to take a look at it here live, and I may stop it and talk about it. Maybe I'll agree or disagree with the point. Or maybe we'll run through the whole thing and I'll say, hey man, that was perfect. But we'll see how it goes. All right, let's get into it.
Hey, it's Rick Kettner here, and in this video, we're going to explore the best marketing strategy for promoting a new business or a new product. Essentially, we're going to be looking at a simple method that you can use to choose and execute on the best marketing opportunities for your specific business. Now, this is a follow-up to a previous video that I published on 33 ways to get more customers. You can find a link to that video in the description box below. And of course, if you're interested in learning more about how to build and grow your business, then I recommend that you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on future videos. But let's get into it. The number one reason why new businesses fail is that they don't attract enough customers. And the reality is, a lot of businesses make it through the other stages, like coming up with a brand name, coming up with a logo, even building out a basic product or service. But unfortunately, many of them fail when it comes to actually attracting prospects and converting those prospects into customers. So that is the entire focus of this video. We're going to be going through a simple 4-step framework called the Bullseye Framework. This is from Traction by Gabriel Weinberg and Justin Mayers, a really great book for startups that are looking to attract customers to their business. And this is a simple, like I say, a 4-step process that you can use to attract customers. The very first step is to brainstorm marketing ideas. So what you want to do here is you want to go through all the different ways that you could possibly attract customers to your business, and you want to come up with realistic scenarios for how you might execute on those opportunities.
I think the key here is realistic. You really need to put yourself in the shoes of a person and think through like how they're actually going to interact with this marketing campaign. A lot of the times we come up with all sorts of ideas, but realistic is key. How are people going to react when they engage with the product in the way that you're kind of perceiving? Are you able to build the distribution for whatever ad you're putting out in the world? These are really, things to think deeply through. Realistic is key.
Opportunities. Now, I mentioned earlier that I recently published a video covering 33 ways to get more customers. You can go through that video. That's 33 different marketing channels that are covered in that video. And the idea here, even though we're not going to be pursuing all 33 channels at once, we'd be spreading ourselves way too thin. The idea here is to come up with realistic scenarios for each and every one of them, just as an exploratory process. So, for example, if you go down the list and you see content marketing, you want to come up with a realistic scenario for how you might promote your business using content marketing. What kind of articles could you create? What kind of videos would you create? A podcast? You want to explore exactly how you might pursue that opportunity if you absolutely had to. And then you want to do the same as you go down the list with search advertising, social advertising, hosting live events. You might consider, would you host a local meetup, a small meetup group with enthusiastic customers, or would you try to put on a big fancy event and invite other speakers?
And then if you are doing those types of things, you want to think, how are people even going to learn about this event? If I'm using meetup.com, that's fine, but I'm also reliant on meetup.com, bringing customers to my event. So do I need to market that event even further forward and figure out how do I even let people know about the event that I'm putting on?
Whatever the marketing channel might be, the idea here is to simply explore the possibilities, to reasonably brainstorm what you could do if you absolutely had to pursue the various different marketing opportunities that are out there. And the reason why this is important is because oftentimes businesses get stuck in a rut where they really only pursue marketing channels that all of their rivals are pursuing. So if you see another potential competitor using search advertising, you might be tempted to just say, okay, search advertising is the way that you market this kind of business. And that really limits your options. And unfortunately, when you follow that kind of strategy, you're actually playing into your competitor's strengths and you're pursuing a channel that is already going to be competitive, right? So by its very definition, the most popular channels may not necessarily be the best opportunities. Sometimes they are still, sometimes they aren't. So that's the entire point of this first step, is to actually explore what you might do if you had to pursue different channels in order to just flesh them out and see what might be possible. Step number 2 is to select promising channels. So this is a very important step where we start to narrow the field. Instead of pursuing all 33 channels, we want to narrow it down to about 3 to 5 of them.
What happened?
free channels. We want to narrow it down to about 3 to 5 of the most promising opportunities. And when I say promising, because you're a startup, your number one priority should be speed. So you want to find channels that are likely to create results for you quickly. And of course, you also want to choose channels.
And that's just important. It's from the iterative process. The faster feedback we can produce, the more opportunity we have to iterate. So over a fixed period of time. So if I can get feedback on a daily basis, I can, iterate 7 times a week. If it takes me a month to get feedback, my iterative cycles are slower, and therefore kind of how much I can change my business to respond to kind of market conditions slows.
That are likely to offer a lot of customers, right? So you're talking about both volume of customers and speed at which you can actually attract them. And of course, another consideration would be your ability to attract them profitably. So just because a channel can deliver a lot of customers and can do so quickly, it might not be cost effective to pursue it. So that's the kind of thing you want to be thinking about as you narrow down the field to 3 to 5 of the most promising channels or the most promising opportunities based on your initial brainstorming. Then it's time to move on to step 3. And step 3 is something that I think a lot of businesses skip over just naturally when they try to pursue marketing opportunities. And step 3 is to perform inexpensive tests. This is
what we're talking about this is your experiments. This is getting into really the iterative approach.
Critical because even if an opportunity seems really promising, and as you go through how you might pursue it, it seems really attractive and it might be really exciting. The fact is, not all marketing channels are equal, and sometimes you might be really surprised to find out that one channel just isn't that effective. And if you don't compare its results with another channel, then you're really never able to make that differentiation and to realize, hey, this might be a half decent opportunity, but over here is a much, much better opportunity that we should really be focusing all of our time and attention on. So this step is all about just simply performing inexpensive, simple tests to validate the potential of each of your promising opportunities. Now, one mistake a lot of businesses make when it comes to testing marketing opportunities like this is they try to overly optimize in the process. So for example, if you were going to place ads on Google AdWords, you might go on there and say, okay, I have $40 margin on my product. I can't afford to spend more than $40 per conversion here. And so if I'm spending more than that, then this channel just isn't very promising. And that thought process leads them to aim for targets and to set their ad spend in a way that is unlikely to provide really great results. And the reason why this is bad is because the only goal of this step here is to validate 2 things. 1, that there are enough customers in this channel that it's worth pursuing. And 2, that you have a vague sense that if you took the time to optimize your efforts and to improve your ad copy and to improve your landing page and your entire marketing funnel as it relates to that channel, then over time, you almost certainly.
Yeah, that's interesting. So this is getting into the iterative approach, but really what he's saying is, kind of setting the first experiment is testing channel first. I don't necessarily 100% agree with that because there could be, testing whether the product idea is right could, be the first thing to potentially test. So this may be the right approach to take on the first step. It may not be. I'm not going to really quibble with whether or not it's wrong. I think it's good to be, at least he's got certainty on this is step 1. So I think it's fair. But you could approach this different ways.
Certainly will be profitable. That's what you're trying to figure out. You're not trying to actually optimize, because if you do that too early, you're ruling out a channel before you even give it a chance to breathe. So what you want to do here is just simply perform inexpensive tests to validate there are customers there and that it's worth your time and energy to pursue things further. And then afterwards, later in the future, you can worry about doing all that optimization. In some cases, it takes months, if not years, to really perfect your entire approach to that channel. And that's perfectly okay. You can do that in the future, and it's not going to affect your long-term potential with that channel. But the idea behind this step is just simply develop.
I like just the way he's talking. It is, expecting like immediate results is, or immediate like very successful results is kind of unrealistic. This is a long game, and we are looking for. Often the signals are somewhat weak. So when we're talking about running experiments and iterating, the signal that you receive back, it can sometimes be like a gut feel. So often it is not crystal clear what you should be doing. It's kind of your job as the marketer to interpret what you're seeing and propel things forward.
Validate that it's worth your time to explore things further. And then we move on to step number 4, which is to look at all these tests that we performed and to select one promising channel, to select the single thing that we're going to focus on when it comes to building momentum with the business. And this is incredibly important when it comes to a brand new startup, because you really can't afford to be spreading yourself too thin. And the reality is that when it comes to a lot of marketing channels, there's a bit of a winner take all dynamic that happens with marketing channels. Google search is a great example of this. The person that is able to best optimize and best outperform their rivals when it comes to advertising for a specific keyword or a specific family of keyword phrases, they tend to far outperform whoever is second in that area, whoever is second best at utilizing that marketing channel. So it really pays to become an absolute master at least one channel when you're growing a business. In fact, that's pretty common wisdom within the marketing community, that you really, if you want to have a successful business, there should be at least one channel out there that the entrepreneur or founder, or at least one of the co-founders of the business, is incredibly familiar with and is very proficient at using. And that really gives the business a lot of strength. And so the idea here is really simple, right? You just want to focus on one channel. You want to become really great at that one channel, and you want to absolutely focus your efforts on capitalizing on all of the potential of that channel until, of course, you hit diminishing returns. And that's the point at which spending more money on the channel doesn't really give you more results. You might find a point, like let's say Google AdWords, you might find spending more than $50,000 in a given period just simply does not increase results. And at that point, it's time to revisit this process, explore other channels, and figure out what second or third channel you can tag on to expand your business. But that's really the process here. It's really straightforward. It's really simple. It might almost seem too simple, but that's okay. And it's a very powerful way to, like I say, select and test and ultimately find the one channel that is most promising for your business. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you have any questions, or if you have any...
So just to maybe close this out, so he's saying, selecting channel first. You got to select the channel, then you got to have the right product and the right message for that channel. All those things need to come together. So, that's why being really realistic with how people are going to engage with your product. Is this product the right product for the right market that I'm able to get through, through this channel? All those things are really highly important. So maybe you focus on channel first. Maybe you decide to take another direction. I think the approach that he's describing is 100% spot on. It is this. It's realistic. I think that's the key. You got to be realistic, and you got to be honest to really approach things this way. All right. That's what we're going to go through this week. If you have any questions, please book an office hour. I'm here for you. I'm here to help. And I can't wait to see what you turn in. Excited to talk to you soon. Thanks.